All right, guys, continuing along. We're pressing forward, Matthew chapter 16. All right, so let's go right into it. All right, so one day the Pharisees and Sadducees came to test Jesus, demanding that he show them a miraculous sign from heaven to prove his authority. We heard that word before, authority. We were just talking about it earlier. He replied, "You know the saying, red sky at night means fair weather tomorrow. Red sky in the morning means foul weather all day. You know how to interpret the weather signs in the sky, but you don't know how to interpret the signs of the times." Okay? Only an evil, adulterous generation would demand a miraculous sign, but the only sign I will give them is a sign of the prophet Jonah. Then Jesus left them and went away. So, what did you guys get from that? I know there's a lot of kind of vague
what's something that stood out to you
topic.
guys?
What stood out to you guys?
Good question.
Good question. Great question. We'll get to that. You got anything?
No.
So the Pharisees and the Sadducees, okay, these are religious leaders, religious elders that believe different things. I believe the Sadducees believed, what is it in the?
I think the Pharisees are the lawmakers.
Yep, I think the Sadducees believed in the rise of the dead or something like that. Is it that the Sadducees believed? They denied the resurrection of the dead. Okay, that was their belief. They denied the resurrection of the dead. Apologize for that. But they were demanding that Jesus show them a miraculous sign from heaven to prove his authority. And he was saying to them, hey, you guys are not being the greatest of people, and you're asking for all these signs and miracles. And what he offered to them is, the only sign I will give them is a sign of the prophet Jonah. Now, do you guys know what the prophet Jonah did? The prophet Jonah was stuck in a giant fish for 3 days. Okay? And this was a prophecy. So that's the second time we hear the 3 days. Okay? Because Jesus was crucified, okay, and resurrected after the third day. Right? Just like Jonah being stuck in the fish for 3 days. So he was actually giving people a prophecy of something that was going to happen. He already knew that he was going to die. So he was telling them, I'm going to give you a sign, and the sign is going to be the sign of the prophet Jonah. So that was like a clue for them to understand what he was about to do, or what he was about to go through.
Wait, did he know when he was gonna die, or he just knew that he was going to die?
That's a great question. Because Jesus is man and God, I think his manhood struggled to cope. Cope is like when you deal with something, okay? And then his divinity was always accepting and was always aligned with what God the Father had already predetermined. Okay? So, I guess to answer your question, I believe that he did know. Okay? He did know. Okay? And this is why he's telling people, giving them clues so that they can understand. All right? Jesus warns against wrong teaching. Here we go. Later, after they crossed to the other side of the lake, the disciples discovered they had forgotten to bring any bread. Watch out, Jesus warned them. Beware of the yeast of the Pharisees and Sadducees. At this, they began to argue with each other because they hadn't brought any bread. Jesus knew what they were saying, so he said, "You have so little faith. Why are you arguing with each other about having no bread? Don't you understand even yet? Don't you remember the 5,000 I fed with the 5 loaves and the baskets of leftovers you picked up? Or the 4,000 I fed with 7 loaves and the large baskets of leftovers you picked up? Why can't you understand that I'm not talking about bread? So again, I say, beware of the yeast of the Pharisees and Sadducees." Then, at last, they understood that he wasn't speaking about the yeast in bread, but about the deceptive teaching of the Pharisees and Sadducees. Okay? Teaching. Okay? You want to pick up 13?
Yeah.
13.
Okay. When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, when he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" "Well," they replied, "some say John the Baptist, some say Elijah, and others say Jeremiah, or one of the other prophets." Then he asked them, "But who do you say I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." Jesus replied, "You are blessed, Simon, son of John, because my Father in heaven has revealed this to you. You did not learn this from any human being."
Pause real quick. So, 2 things I want you to pay attention to here real quick. So he asked Peter, "Who do you say I am?" Or who do you, yep, that's right. And Peter said, "You are the Messiah, Son of the living God." Peter said, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And Jesus later confirms what he said, agrees with what he said, and he said, "You are blessed, Simon, son of John, because my Father," okay, this is important, "my Father in heaven has revealed this to you." So did he say, "No, I'm not the Son of the living God, of God"? Did he say, "No, I'm not the Son of God"? Did he say, "No, I am not the Son of the living God"? Did he say, "I'm not the Messiah"? No. He said, "You are blessed, Simon, son of John, because my Father in heaven has revealed this to you. You did not learn this from any human being." So that's his way of saying, yes, I am the Messiah, and I am the Son of the living God. And my Father in heaven has revealed this to you. Make sense? Okay. Go ahead. What's your question?
What does the prophecy mean?
Prophecy is when something, if I say like, in a month, the sun's going to be red and it's going to rain for 7 days. And then a month passes and then that actually happens. It's like the sun turns red and it rains for 7 days. It's just an example I'm giving you. But when you say something that's going to happen, you're in the present or you're in the past and something happens in the future that you said was going to happen. You predicted something. Make sense? So like if somebody were to say, "Hey, I have a message from God and God said that in 10 days this is going to happen." And then you're like, "Okay," and then 10 days pass by and that happens. That would be a prophecy. And then when it happens, we would say it's a prophecy that was fulfilled. Okay? So, to give you an example, remember what I told you about Jonah? You asked, who was Jonah? Jonah was a prophet who was stuck in a great fish for 3 days. The prophecy is that, just like Jonah, Jesus would be essentially missing for 3 days. Okay? So that's a prophecy. that was fulfilled. Okay? A miracle of Jonah. The sign of the prophet Jonah, as Jesus said. What?
Do you mean she got stuck in a whale?
He.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stuck for 3 days.
For 3 days,
In a
yeah.
whale.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. When you were talking about how they thought Jesus was talking about how they thought Jesus was talking about the yeast when they give him bread. Why would they think that he was talking about the yeast in the bread?
Why would they? Because they were arguing about the bread.
In order to make bread, you need yeast.
In order to make bread, you need yeast. And remember, he did say why they started arguing about the bread, and he's like, you guys still don't get it. I'm not talking about bread. I'm talking about teaching, and I'm talking about faith. False teaching. So he was saying, be careful of the yeast of the Pharisees and the Sadducees, because they're teaching false things. Okay?
Yeah.
Where were we? Sorry.
We are still at 118.
Okay. No, wait.
Okay. So we left with, you did not learn this from any human being. Now I say to you that you are Peter, which means rock. And upon the rock I will build my church, and
Amen.
all the powers of hell will not conquer it.
Amen.
And I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you forbid on earth will be forbidden in heaven, and whatever you permit on earth will be permitted in heaven. Then he sternly warned the disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah. Want to continue?
So real quick here, what do you get from that, Mommy?
And so it's important to note, I guess if we're referring back to the last, was it 17 through 18, where he blesses Simon and reminds him that what was revealed to him wasn't from him alone, his knowledge, but it came from God.
So it's important here we remember Simon and Peter are the same person.
Yeah.
Okay? Simon and Peter are the same person. He just had, I guess, different names or things that people called him. Simon Peter. Okay? It's very important because this small paragraph here
It's Jesus speaking.
is Jesus speaking, like we say in red, right? And the other thing is, Jesus wanted confirmation from Simon Peter. And then Jesus, right after that confirmation, tells Peter what's going to happen. So Jesus asked Peter, who am I? Who do you say I am? And he says, you're the Messiah, Son of the living God. You are blessed, Simon of John. And Jesus said, you are blessed, Simon of John, because my Father in heaven has revealed this to you. You did not learn this from any human being. So in other words, God has blessed you to have this knowledge and has given you this knowledge, okay? Mm-hmm. Now I say to you, okay, now because of that, I, Jesus, am saying to you, Peter, and upon this rock, you're the rock, okay, that's what his name meant, and his name meant the rock. I will build my church, and all the powers of hell will not conquer it. And I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you forbid on earth will be forbidden in heaven, and whatever you permit on earth will be permitted in heaven. So this is Jesus giving the keys of the church to Peter. And now he's telling Peter, I will build my church, and all the powers of hell will not conquer it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Okay, so through the church, the kingdom of the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Okay, and then he's saying, whatever you permit on earth will be permitted in heaven. Okay, so he's giving them the great responsibility of starting and carrying on the church. Okay, so who, after Jesus, who was the one who started the church? Who carried the church? Peter. Okay? Peter started the church. What you got, buddy? I know you have a question. You've been dying to ask it. What is it?
So, when you said that the red is God speaking, then...
Jesus, yeah.
And what is the black?
It's just regular. It's just reading. We're just reading what happened. But when you see red, it's actually what someone was saying.
You mean that?
Yes, Jesus. Mm-hmm.
What? I wanted to also know what that darker black look is.
It's just to tell what's happening in this part in this section.
Just
So you can see, on the map, like the journey to Caesarea and Philippi. So you can see on the map what that would have looked like.
Where they're walking. They're headed to Israel. Right?
Okay. Yeah. All right. So you have a question?
Yeah.
Yes.
Jerusalem, sorry.
Why well, Peter or Simon, why was he the one being told like what he said, you whatever you permit on earth will be permitted on in heaven, and I forgot
What was your question? I'm sorry.
why was he being told that?
Who? Peter?
Peter.
Peter was the first one to respond correctly, and it wasn't by his knowledge. It was by God that revealed it to him, and so he was the starting point of the truth revealed.
Now, when he says that whatever you forbid on earth will be forbidden in heaven, and whatever you permit on earth will be permitted in heaven, remember that word that I talked to you guys about earlier is authority. Okay? Peter was the first one, well, he was the one who he gave the authority to basically speak on his behalf and do things on his behalf. So when he was doing things for the church, he was doing it with the authority of Jesus Christ. So that's what that's talking about. Okay. And we're almost. Okay. Go ahead.
Then he sternly warned the disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah. From then on, Jesus began to tell his disciples plainly that it was necessary for him to go to Jerusalem, and that he would suffer many terrible things at the hands of the elders, the leading priests, and the teachers of the religious law. He would be killed, but on the third day he would be raised from the dead.
Real quick, this is important too. So who is the people? So he's telling everyone what's going to happen to him. He's predicting his own death. He's saying that he's going to suffer many terrible things, and he's going to be killed. Who is going to make him suffer, and who's going to kill him? The elders, the leading priests, and the teachers of religious law. So the same people who worship the living God, the same people who are in control of society, the same people who create all these laws are the people that would kill him. Okay? Not people who didn't know the law, not people who weren't priests or didn't understand. It was the ones who should have known better, because if they would have studied their scriptures and put everything together, they would have known that he was claiming to be the Son of the living God, greater than the temple, greater than the Sabbath. Okay? Among other things that he said.
Okay.
Go ahead.
He would be killed, but on the third day he would be raised from the dead. Mm-hmm. But Peter took him aside and began to reprimand him for saying such things. Heaven forbid, Lord, he said. This will never happen to you. Jesus turned to Peter and said, Get away from me, Satan. You are a dangerous trap to me. You are seeing things merely from a human point of view, not from God's. Then Jesus said to his disciples, If any of you wants to be my follower, you must turn from your selfish ways. Take up your cross and follow me. If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it. And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world but lose your own soul? Is anything worth more than your soul? For the Son of Man will come with his angels in the glory of his Father and will judge all people according to their deeds. And I tell you the truth. Some standing here right now will not die before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom.
That's 16. Mm-hmm. Now, questions on that last part.
Pretty intense stuff.
Yeah, and that is a lot. It was nice though.
Any questions?
No, I think I'm gonna tell you something. God doesn't really have a kingdom. He has the whole world. No, well, when they say kingdom, it's heaven.
Yep, it's heaven.
Yeah, but he also has the world, does he?
Well, the world is just a creation. It's something much smaller than anything so it's much smaller. Heaven is God's kingdom. Okay. All right. So India in here. Remember, Jesus asked Peter who he was. He says, "You're the Son of Man." Then Jesus authorizes Peter to start the church and tells him, "I will basically authorize you and give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. You have the path. You have the responsibility. You're the one who's charged to spread the word to all the world so that other people can also be part of the kingdom of heaven." Right? Then Jesus says, "I'm going away. This is something that's going to happen. I'm going to suffer a lot. There's going to be people that are trying to hurt me. Even the people that should know better are going to try to hurt me, and they're going to kill me. And after 3 days, I will rise from the dead." And then Peter says, no. That can't happen. This will never happen to you. So Jesus did something that may not have made sense to a lot of people at the time. He says, "Get away from me, Satan." And Peter was not Satan, obviously. But what he was saying is the thought in his mind was coming from Satan. He was saying, "You're thinking of trying to save me because you're being selfish. You want to save me, but you don't understand the things of God. God already knew what was going to happen." That's what he's trying to tell him. God already knows what's going to happen. And he is the one who has decided that I must die so that everyone may be saved for our sins. Okay? Why? Why is that important? Because when Jesus first came, he said, "I did not come to abolish the law. I came to fulfill the law." And what that meant is that he had to complete the laws of the time before, which he did because he was the perfect lamb that was sacrificed. Perfect meaning he never sinned. He never did anything wrong, and he was sacrificed. And him being God is the perfect sacrifice, right? And all of the law was fulfilled. Okay. So as the law was fulfilled, there's an order to everything, and God only understands that order. So Peter was trying to jump out in front and say, no, like, "I'll protect you, I'll defend you, this can't happen to you." Okay? Because it was in his heart and his spirit to want to save Jesus. But Jesus had to tell him, "Don't do that. Get behind me, Satan, because the thoughts in your mind are going against the order of things that God has sent for." Okay? So if God says that I have to die, then I have to die.